All right, so number 5 says find all factors and be sure to show your work. So basically that's, is it what? What about it? Negative 20? No. No. So, guys, listen up. Find all factors. What do we have to look for first when we are factoring? Greatest common factor. So, looking at 4x squared minus 36, what is that going to be?
That's going to be...
Yeah, this one only has numbers for the second term, so we look at the numbers and we say 4, and usually you want to look at your smallest number and see if that divides into any and all of the other numbers. So 4 is the greatest common factor. You have to factor that out front. And then you say 4x squared divided by 4. Well, those 4's cancel out. I'm left with x squared minus 36 divided by 4 is 9.
Misty, I'm not gonna lie. I thought I said that answer out loud. I didn't know.
Oh, no. I think you did.
Fine.
Now, looking at this goes with a couple of things that are at the top because we are not quite done. This is a difference, meaning we are subtracting, of 2 squares. So x squared is definitely a square, and 9 is a perfect square. So if I consider x squared to be a squared minus b squared, I would rewrite this as a minus b times a plus b. So number 2 up at the top of the paper is true. The difference of 2 squares is a minus b times a plus b. Now, this is x squared. I need to take the square root. And I've kind of come up with a different way of doing this, but when you take the square root of x squared, those cancel out. So the square root of x squared is x. And what is the square root of 9? 3. So this becomes x minus 3 times x plus 3. And then putting it all together with my 4 out front. So it's 4 times x minus 3 times x plus 3. That is how you would factor for all of that. Okay? All right, what other questions do you have?
Miss Petey,
Yes.
we all know that number 3 is false because you have to find the GCF.
Correct.
I have to use the last one.
We don't care.
I don't care.
I know.
Yes, it is look for a GCF. And number 2, this statement is true. The difference of 2 squares is a minus b times quantity a plus b. Emergency like? Stop. I am recording this. Can you grab the passes from my... Thank you. Anybody else specific questions? Do you want to start going over circle stuff?
Number 1 is false, right?
Number 1 is, well, you guys tell me. Is it true or false?
False.
It is false. So,
Yeah, I can.
let me finish this first. So, looking at this, if I would factor these out, what is my greatest common factor? Yeah, you fill it out and I'll sign it. It's 2. So looking at these, I can divide by 2. That means 2 is my greatest common factor. The 2's simplify out and I get x minus 12 divided by 2, which is 6. If you are not sure, another way to do it, at least to figure out if it's true or false, is distribute this and say 2 times x is 2x, 2 times negative 12 is minus 24. So at least you get that it's false, right? And then hopefully you can remember and go back. Okay? All right. Other questions? 6? Okay. Yeah.
I'll power clean 405 today.
Power cleaned what?
I did 305.
All right, number 6. I don't even know what that means. I don't. Find the GCF for 4m to the third n squared and 24m n to the third. So this is not factoring. This is only finding the greatest common factor. So look at your numbers first. You've got 4 and 24. What's the greatest common factor of those two numbers? 4. Always look at your smallest number and say, does the smallest number go into the larger? Then that's your greatest common factor to begin with. All right, but we have variables too. So looking at the m, I have m to the third and m to the first, essentially. What's the greatest common factor for my m's? How many m's can I take out of both? 1 is correct. Because, again, you look at your smallest amount. You can't take 3 if you only have 1. So the common is what you can take from both. So that is m to the first. Okay? And looking at n, I have an n squared and n to the third. What's the greatest common factor of the n's? N squared. N squared. Okay, so we aren't looking for factoring. I don't need to fill that out. Right here is the greatest common factor. 4m to the first, or you could just say m times n squared. Any questions on 6? All right, next. You tell me.
No, we know how to do 7 and 8 because it's the same thing, but it's ish.
Okay.
But can we do a number? No, do that.
Let's see.
Yeah.
This stuff's gonna be on paper or?
Paper.
That's easy. Let's see, you pick.
Specific? You want me to pick?
You pick. Because we could be petty and say do every one, but we're not going to do
I think factor by grouping would be good to look at. Number 12.
I think we should.
So factor by grouping. If we have 2 and they are being subtracted, you should look at that as a difference of 2 squares. If we have 3 terms, you're probably looking at X box. If you have 4 or more, you're looking at factor by grouping. So we divide this into essentially 2 separate problems, sort of. And you look at the first 2 and say, what is the greatest common factor of 2x to the 4th minus 4x to the 3rd? So look at the numbers first. You got a 2 and a negative 4. What's the greatest common factor?
Wait, Miss D, you said page 12?
Number 12.
Oh my God.
What's the greatest common factor of 2 and negative 4? 2. So divide by 2. 2 comes out. All right. How about x to the 4th and x to the 3rd? X to the 3rd. Yes, it's always the smaller amount. All right, I should have probably done this as I was going, but so the 2 simplify out, and then I have x to the 4th. Let me bring this up right here. X to the 4th divided by x to the 3rd. If you remember, when you are dividing powers that have the same base, you subtract the exponents. So what I have left to put inside is just x to the 1st power. Okay? Minus 4 divided by 2 is 2. And x to the third divided by x to the third is 1. Now, that's only the first two terms, okay? Now we're going to look at the last two. All right, so I have a 3 and a -6. What's, yeah?
Oh, you put the 1 at the time.
You don't have to. You could have just left it at 2.
Okay.
Yes, good point. So 3 and a -6, what's the greatest common factor? 3, so divide by 3. That means I'm factoring out this positive 3, okay?
Have a whole bunch of terms.
So 3's are going to simplify out. I'm left with x here minus 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, as you look at this right here is really x minus 2 also. These are your new greatest common factors, so you're going to factor that out front and say x minus 2 times, what do I have left? My first term inside parentheses is going to be 2x to the third and plus 3. And you need to look at this again and say, am I sure I'm factored down enough? Well, this is an x to the third. We don't know how to factor that unless we have a greatest common factor, and we already did that. And this is x minus 2, so this is your final answer. So factor by grouping is essentially look at the first two terms, look at the last two, and try to find a GCF, and then later try to find and factor that new GCF out front again.
This is on Canvas,
No,
right? No.
it is not.
Will it be?
Not like where you have to answer on the computer. I
No,
probably.
I mean this. Is it on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. How about some order of operations? That seems to be pretty tricky for people at times.
Miss Didi, can we just do one problem for each question?
Well, we will get to that more tomorrow, but yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's just go right to 13. What would I do first here? This is order of operations, so please excuse my dear. Now remember, multiplication division depends on who comes first, left to right. Same with addition, subtraction. So parentheses, I do have some, I would say right here, 7 minus 5 is 2. And your best bet is to keep everything else the same and work your way down. Okay, I don't have any more things to do inside parentheses. Do I have an exponent? Yes. 3 squared is 9. Leave everything else like it is. Okay, so I'm done with my parentheses. I'm done with my exponents. Multiplication and division, left to right. So I have a 4 times 2 is 8. Minus 9. That is in parentheses, or it's in brackets. You probably could do this one because they are separate, or you could wait till the next one. But 10 divided by 5 is 2. Come on. So I have no more multiplication or division. I do addition, subtraction from left to right. 8 minus 9, -1 plus 2. -1 plus 2 is +1. Okay.
I wouldn't allow two.
RP.
No, don't worry about it. It's not funny.
I wouldn't allow two was funny.
It's not funny. Don't worry.
Letter B, this is evaluating when you have to substitute. This is a substitution type of problem. 7 minus 4 times quantity x minus 1 when x is equal to 4. So we're telling you x is equal to 4, substitute 4 in for x, but keep everything the same. So x is 4 minus 1. So then now it's a new order of operations problem. Do I have any parentheses? Yes. 4 minus 1 is 3. So then I have a 4 here. I have a 7 minus. Do I do subtraction or multiplication? Multiplication is 12. And then 7 minus 12, negative 5. So order of operation can be tricky at times.
I don't like this.
I mean, it's not tricky to know what you're doing like that.
True. Everything's easy if you know how to do it, right? This one says to solve. Let's go ahead and just go through this one. So what would you do first here? I have some parentheses, but can I do x minus 6?
No.
No. So what would you do here?
Distribute the 2.
Distribute the 2. Good. So 2 times x is 2x. Minus 2 times 6 is 12. Plus 4x equals negative 18. Now, here's where I see a lot of mistakes. What should you do next?
Your X's first.
Yeah.
Combine your like terms. I will see people start to like subtract 4x and subtract 4x here, and that's not even on the other side. So combine your like terms. Yes, I have 2x here plus 4x, and you got to look at the signs in front. So that's a positive. Plus 4x is 6x. Minus 12 equals negative 18. Now what would you do? You're,
12 where I guess
you are,
12 on both sides.
right, you're trying to solve for x. So you want to get the x by itself. Add 12, add 12. 12s cancel out, and you get 6x is equal to negative 6. Right now you are multiplying. You want to undo that multiplication by dividing. So x is equal to negative 1. So your homework, and you really should do this, is try to work through some more of these problems and come in with questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to try to go through and try to get at least one type of problem from each section. But you still should try to do some of these problems.
Miss Edie, if I try to do this, I'm just probably need to go home and try to watch the Flash on Netflix.
On Netflix? Is this the one? It just finished up, didn't it?
It's about to.
I used to watch a lot of it, actually.
Yeah, I've been a fan.